Hello, hello. Welcome back to an all new episode of The In Between. I'm your host, Elizabeth Cheney, and feels good to be back, y'all. Although I feel like my life has been turned upside down since returning from Italy, it feels good to be back. Feels good to be back on the pod. One could say the pod keeps me grounded. I just want to go ahead and preface that today's episode may be filled with lots of self depreciating humor because sometimes that's all you have. Sometimes that's all you have to get you through whatever you're going through. So let's jump into it. First off, how is everybody? Are we doing great? Are we enjoying the transition into fall? I've started to see lots of, oh no, summer's leaving posts. And I'm over here just like thriving. You want to know why? If you keep up with the pod, then you remember that I don't really get the winter blues. I actually thrive during the fall and winter. I think because I love the cold, partially love the dark. That's a little weird, I know, but not that I don't love the summer. I love the summer. Summer's great, but I'm more of a fall girly, more of a winter girly, believe it or not. The summer days are long, the days are hot, the days are thick with humidity because I live in Georgia. And, I do like vacation. I do like the beach, but I can go on vacation in the fall. I can go on vacation in the winter. I don't know why I'm kicking off today's episode with essentially the weather, but maybe I'm just a little rusty. But also, what's really exciting about today's episode is it's in video. So, if you care so much to watch me with this podcast, well, you can check it out on YouTube. I'm sure I'll have clips on my Instagram, but I'm just trying to get with the technology, y'all. Trying to get with the times because that algorithm only likes those videos, only likes those reels, only likes those TikToks. The algorithm is not a fan as much of the posts anymore. So this geriatric millennial needs to get their shit together so they can be one with social medias. Yes, I said social medias. Shoot me. But anyways, okay, so last week I had my trip recap with Stan. I know it was a little bit of a longer episode, but it was good. It was great. We had to cover all the whole country of Italy that we went through, basically. But I've already received lots of feedback. I do feel like Stan shined in that episode. So if you want to, get to know me and Stan, get to know how our trip was, and just, I don't know, act like you're hanging out with us, check it out wherever you can listen to your podcasts. Let's see, what else is there? Oh, my dog. My dog. So let's just jump right into it. Basically, the entire time we were gone in Italy, Luna was sick. Now, it was like some GI, gastrointestinal, if you will, stuff going on. I'll spare you the details, but basically, she's having diarrhea. That's as much as the TMI I'm going to give you guys. Anyways, Luna doesn't really have these kind of issues, so weren't really concerned about it in the beginning. We thought it was just stress related, and I don't know. There was a really bad thunderstorm that went through like the night before we left, and it was like rattling the whole house kind of thing. She also is like sees our suitcases out, so she knows we're leaving. I do think it was kind of a perfect storm of things. She got into something she shouldn't have a couple of days before we left. So I think that also played into it. And like I said, she's never had issues before. So we had nothing to think that this was some kind of serious issue. And my mom is watching her and getting us all these updates. God bless my mother. Seriously, she's a godsend. She really pulled through in this situation. But a few days before we got back, Luna stopped eating. Now, see, the thing about our dog is we call her a truffle pig. She's always crumb rumming, always trying to get snacks, treats. She loves food. Don't worry, moderation, but this dog is very food motivated. So for her to stop eating and having no interest in food was kind of a big deal. All right. So my mother takes her to the vet, gets her an appointment at her vet. They're doing all this blood work, blah, 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 blah. Basically, the protein levels in her blood are anywhere near where they should be. Like they're like less than half of what they should be. And that's a little concerning. So we're cool. We're cool. We don't really know all the details. Like we know that she's sick because my mom didn't want to ruin our time in Italy. Plus, what we don't know is what we don't know, right? Well, when we get back Monday night, we get back later. So it's like 7 p.m., 7:30. We get home to visit our dog, and I noticed that she's so swollen. She's almost like double the size that she was when we left, like cartoon character status. Mickey gloves, I think about that. And I was like, this can't be good. So we ended up taking her to her follow-up the next day. So we get home 7:30, 8 p.m. Monday. Tuesday, me and Stan took the day off to kind of recoup and, get my car back. Because remember, before I left, I wrecked my car in the parking garage. It was truly a great time to my whole life just to come and just implode. But anyways, pick up my car, had to go do this, go do that. So we were going to take Luna to her follow-up appointment to retest her blood. And they are, of course, concerned because our dog is double the size that she should be normally because she is so swollen. And long story short, her numbers did not improve and we had to rush her to the emergency vet. Yes. 2-week vacation to land, and not even 24 hours later, our dog is being rushed to the ER vet because something ain't right. I'm being funny about this, but understand that I was terrified. It was a very scary situation. Stan was really, really scared too. Also, the ER vet is just not a place to be. And I'm not going to get into the details because I'm not sure how I'm going to handle how we were treated and addressing that situation, with whether it's that facility itself or its bigger corporate office. But the experience that we had, I will leave it nameless for now, was horrible. If you are local to the Atlanta metro area, chances are you have been to this ER vet. It is a chain. I've been to other locations of this chain, but this one specific location was absolutely horrendous. The experience with Luna being sick and what she was going through was traumatic enough, but they they being this ER emergency animal hospital created an entirely more stressful and traumatic experience. So I don't even want to tie in the experience of Luna to the experience of the ER vet because it was its own can of worms, if you know what I mean. They basically told us our dog was going to die. Yeah. So well, forget vacationing, forget relishing in your Italian vacation and the culture and all of this. Forget decompressing. God, that wasn't even on the agenda. Basically, we had to just live in fear for 3 days while our dog was kept in the ER that she was going to die because that is what the vet told us. The ER vet said, there's a good chance she will not respond to this therapy treatment and you're going to have to put her down. Our dog is like 6 years old. She's still got a long life ahead of her. And for y'all who know me and listen to the pod, you know your girl loves her dog. This is my baby. This is my protege. I birthed her, technically, theoretically. But it was awful. So we are getting little bits of information. And mind you, we're just so confused as to what's going on anyway. Because again, Luna doesn't really have health issues. And this seemingly came out of nowhere. So the problem with what the ER vet did is they treated Luna as if this was a chronic condition and she was just having some crazy flare up. So they put her on a obscene high dosage of steroids and she has to have this in my opinion, nasty prescription food. From now on, she'll never be able to have any other like types of treats. Maybe eventually you can give her blueberries or carrots, but this is her food. This is her life. And again, know that this is not necessarily going to give her a better quality of life. You may have to put her down because she may not respond to treatment. Just kept going back down to you may have to put her down because she may not respond to treatment. Now, also, mind you, we spent $6,000 on this ER vet. I'm going to cover how that made us feel, considering the fact that we just got back from Italy and spent, a chunk of change there to just come home and spend a chunk of change at the ER vet. That's what they call an emergency savings, right? Ooh, but, anything for my pup, but you get my drift. Came home from Italy, immediately rushed our dog to the ER, basically told our dog is going to die. We're so confused because, holy shit, she's been fine. What's going on? Side note, this is your reminder that that emergency savings bucket is very important. I don't know what you can contribute, but every little bit helps. If it's $20, put $20 a month in there. If it's $50, put $50 in there. $100, put $100 in there. You get my point. Anywho. They do an endoscopy, which I kept saying endoscopy because I'm an idiot and I was so stressed out, but I know what the word actually means. So for anyone I talked to during that weekend, I said endoscopy. I promise I am not an idiot. But anyways, the endoscopy, we get the results back, and basically her stomach and intestines are just super inflamed, like so inflamed they're like bleeding. She's got ulcers. Just, God, girl's gut was wrecked. Wrecked, okay? So we get her back on the third day. And mind you, the vet has continued to express to us, she doesn't respond to therapy. We're just going to see what happens. I want to test her blood in like a week. All this kind of shit. We get her back and like, she's not all right, y'all. She is just, the poor baby is sick and she's been in the ER for 3 days and she didn't see us for 2 weeks. And mind you, we think anxiety did play a little part into this. So we get her back and she is having side effects to the medication, which mind you, on the little like discharge sheet that we get, all the signs and things that we need to watch out for that if she starts showing, we have to take her in, bring her back in, are all side effects of the steroids. So, how do you think that made me feel? Crazy. All right. uh, I immediately go ahead and call a holistic vet, and I'm like, look, I want to bring my dog in. I'm not really agreeing with what the vet is saying. I want a different opinion because I could tell that the ER vet was treating this situation like black and white. She was treating it as a chronic situation, and she was not listening to anything that we said about our dog. Not to mention, she was extremely rude. The entire staff there was so rude. And also, not to mention, I felt like we had no voice, despite the fact that she would not listen to us. Like, she literally scoffed at me a few times. And I am not trying to be like a know it all. I'm just trying to like give her all the information about our dog. And then she just kept saying chronic, chronic, chronic. And I'm like, but my dog literally doesn't have diarrhea, doesn't have these issues. What do you mean? But she scoffed at me a few times. But what I was saying is not to mention, despite all of their rudeness and the $6,000 I spend there, you have to sign something that says that if you are considered rude or inappropriate or just basically that there's somebody that they don't want to take care of, they will discharge you and not service your pet. So they make you sign something that basically says if anybody in that staff deems you the least bit rude, you're kicked out. Well, I'm not rude. I think that I am very sweet sometimes. And I was actually very proud of the way I handled this whole situation, considering how scary and anxiety inducing it was. But I felt like we could not speak because one, they didn't like questions. They were just so rude and short. They wouldn't let us get questions out. They wouldn't let us like address certain things. Not that I was contradicting what they were saying, but I was like, okay, you keep saying chronic. I mean, this is just so weird. Like this has come out of nowhere. Like those kind of questions. Cause that's genuine. Like I really want to know that. Like, what have I done wrong? Where did this come from? Like my dog has gone 6 years living her life gracefully, beautifully, amazingly. And yet you're not telling me that she could die. So this is an extreme 180. Excuse me if I have a few questions, right? Right. And to be honest, I'm being a little modest. Maybe it's because this is my first time on camera on the pod. Well, not my first time on the camera. What am I talking about? But you know what I mean. First time really looking you straight in the eye. However, I've also just recapped and replayed and discussed this whole situation so many times now. I'm a little burnout, you know what I mean? But yeah, that was basically it. Just really horrible bedside manner. And then also, she would explain things to me in all of their proper medical scientific terminology. So she's saying, I'm just going to be blunt with y'all, all these humongous words that I have no idea what she's talking about because I didn't go to veterinarian school. Okay. And I'm just like, can we speak this in English? Can we speak this on the dumb man's terms? Because it's going in one ear, not quite going out the other, but just creating an anxiety swirl in my head because I don't really know what you're saying. And I do hear what you're saying in that he made us put her down. So that was our welcome home party from Italy. So when people ask me, how was Italy? All this stuff, I'm just like, it was great. I'm still processing it because I had to go into fight or flight as soon as I got back. So all I had to say is I don't recommend coming back from vacation and then having to turn your entire world upside down because your child is going to die. Maybe that was a little dramatic. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. But she's my baby. She's my baby. So the day after we got her back, so the first full day, she started having like a super bad reaction to the medicine, started convulsing, thought she was having a fucking seizure. Yeah, y'all. It rains, it pours. It was raining and it was pouring. So I'm trying to get her to eat. She's throwing up. That was a side effect to work looked out for. And I'm just like, oh my God, she's not responding to therapy. That's all I could think about is that my dog is not responding well. It's gonna get put down because that's literally all the ER vet kept telling us. So we called, like, remember how I mentioned this vet is a chain? So I called the location that I've normally used in the past that's closer to our house, and I've never really had any issues with them. And so they were a lot nicer on the phone and they were explaining all of this and this. And they're like, get her to eat, try to get her to eat. If she doesn't eat, then bring her in. It's possible her stomach's not ready for the ingestible medicine. It needs to be injectable. All this stuff. All this stuff. And I also want you to know that when we were discharged from the other location, they really didn't give us much instruction. They just gave us a piece of paper. And I was like waiting for them to explain and go over it with me. And they didn't. So I was like, picks up paper. Okay. Can we go through this really quick? I had to prompt them. $6,000 and I had to prompt them. God, the more I talk about it, the more pissed I get because don't worry, she's no longer scared. She is pissed. She is pissed. All right? Ugh. I was like, "You know what, Stan, let's before we rush her to this ER vet again, because we knew that was gonna be hella stressful to her and poor baby just needed to, like, chill, we got her to eat." And she ate, and she kept it down, and it was amazing. And by that point, her normal vet had already given us a call back, because I've been waiting all day to address things with them. Went through the whole experience, went through everything they said. They were even kinda confused because they're like, "But this is an acute situation, this isn't chronic." And I was like, "Our point exactly." But, you're not the vet, so you feel a little crazy. Like, I recognize I'm not the professional, so why am I gonna question what the professional told me? I mean, I am questioning it, don't get me wrong, but it's like this, ha, ha, like, just this, like, little, this dilemma, this eternal dilemma that I'm having. Because, again, I am not a vet, so who am I to think that I know more than them? But something just wasn't setting right with me, setting right with my gut. No pun intended, Luna. So, we're talking to her vet, and she's going through everything with us. She doesn't necessarily agree with what the ER vet said. She went through a few other points in the discharge paperwork because basically the prognosis that the ER vet gave was guarded. And I was very mindful not to Google because I knew Google would probably scare the shit out of me. But I did Google that because I was like, that does not sound good. And, well, spoiler alert, it was not good. It did not mean good things on the Googles. It meant, guarded means not good in veterinarian speak. That was literally what the result said. So I was like, "Oh, God." And, when you don't know what you don't know and it's scary, it just adds on and makes everything, like, 4 times worse than what it actually is, right? So, sorry to kick off today's episode, like, the first solo one in several weeks, and I'm just like, "Let me tell you my puppy drama," but, I had a lot of people reach out and were concerned about Luna. First and foremost, that means the absolute world to me because all of that care and concern was the only thing keeping me grounded and feeling protected, feeling seen. I mean, protected, seriously, feeling protected in my thoughts and my feelings, feeling seen, feeling validated, all of the things. So, my advice to y'all, if you're going through something super heavy that you need some community support, post about it. I know that sounds a little weird, but you just, I don't know, you never know. Because I did not realize how much I needed that support from people. So, where was I? So the weekend goes by and she is noticeably getting better. The drainage took about a week to completely get out of her system, but she was eating normal. Her personality was not quite back. I would say she was a little depressed because, like, remember how I called her a truffle pig? Well, this dog loves food and we give her like fresh food toppers, blueberries, like carrots, like things like that. And she went from living her best life, enjoying all her best things to eating this shit diet and peeing herself. And she can't have any kind of comfort food. I mean, think about it. If you were sick, you were told all you could eat was this bland smoothie, essentially. You couldn't have French fries. You couldn't have a Philly cheesesteak. That's a little dramatic, but you know what I'm trying to say here. You'd be a little stressed, be a little depressed, for sure. For sure. And then also throw in the fact that she was a little pissed at us that we were gone for 2 weeks. So part of me was like, is she depressed or is she just giving me the cold shoulder? Because my dog would do both. These smart dogs, let me just say, they're smart. They keep you humble, they keep you grounded. Oh, God. But anyways, here is the rundown. And guess what, y'all? Last week we took her in and she's doing so much better. Her numbers are great, except for her white blood cells and her liver enzymes, which were fine before. Well, remember how I mentioned the aggressive level of steroids that the ER vet gave her? Well, the steroid is destroying her muscle mass, destroying my dog's body, and it has significantly increased her white blood cells. And because of the harshness, I don't know, the strength of it, it's hard on her liver. And both the vet, our current vet and the holistic vet have both assured me that, or not assured, that's the wrong word, but have both validated and said similar sentiments that why did the ER vet put her on such a high level of steroids? And the only thing I could think of is because she was treating this as if this was a chronic condition and Luna was having some crazy flare up. So, here's the moral of the story because I'm done. Trust your gut. Whether it's your pup, whether it's your cat, whether it's your kid, trust your gut. Don't ignore the medical professional. I mean, they do have a lot more years of education on you in terms of their degree. But if thing after thing after thing after thing is not lining up and you just feel this strong sense of that's where we're landing, that's we're gonna stay on that, trust it. Because if I had just listened to them and not question anything, I'd I'm probably going to ruin Luna's quality of life and probably shorten her longevity. So instead, I've already came down from 50 to 40 milligrams of steroids. I'm working with a holistic vet on transitioning her to a fresh food diet. Don't even get me on my soapbox about kibble. That is like a whole other episode. But the point is, I am changing her quality of life back to where she was and making it even better. Is it going to happen overnight? Absolutely not. But I'm starting the process, and that's all that matters. Farmer's Dog, if you're listening to this, I would love a sponsorship because my dog needs it. But enough about that, because I definitely just rambled about Luna for like 20 minutes. But she is my baby. She's a huge part of my life. And that's how my world has been the past couple of weeks. I will say this. So, despite the scariness, the unknown, and just figuring out what we need to figure out, basically, but because of Luna's situation, it really forced me to just shut down and just stay in my bubble, which is something that I was struggling with before I left for Italy. Being overcommitted, being overextended, saying yes to way too much stuff, and then kicking myself afterward, going, why did you commit to that? So with Luna's situation, I had to stop and just slow the F down, right? And in that, I did some journaling, trying to work on some grounding work because I felt the complete opposite of grounded. And there was this journal prompt, this article that I had found earlier this summer that was like mid-year check-in. Well, in true Liz fashion, because overcommit, doing too much, I did a 3/4 of the year check-in. And I didn't really have any expectations doing this exercise, but I'll tell you this, the insight that it gave me, where I was currently and where I was with my goals and my mental focus and progress was quite eye-opening in a good way, in a great way. This is not like some dramatic thing. This is just, wow, sometimes these journal prompts, these things, like they are worth it. So, for example, the first thing that it asked to do was, what's the best thing that's happened to me each month so far? So I listed out from January through September because 3/4 of the year check-in, your girl. And I noticed that through January through June, there was some sort of mention about the podcast, whether it was a guest, whether it was a milestone, whether it was an accomplishment, whether it was a big check that was on my to-do list that I got off, like my personal branding photo shoot. And I was like, okay, okay. And then come July, August, and September, no mention of it. The things that I was highlighting were different. And there's nothing wrong with that. But this check-in is supposed to be related to the goals that you set for yourself this year, which goals, schmoles, you know what I mean. Whatever. And around July, late July, that's when I started to have this feeling of disconnect from the podcast. Not that I didn't want to do it, but I was unraveling a little bit. Like life was lifing. And not that there was anything major going on, but I wasn't managing my stress or my time management very well. And I couldn't explain it right. I couldn't grasp what was happening, but there was a disconnect from the in between. And what I mean by disconnect, not that I didn't like what I was doing, not that I didn't love the episodes I was putting out, but I felt like that's all I was doing. I wasn't growing, I wasn't strategizing, I wasn't planning, I wasn't doing what you should be doing as you are trying to get a brand or launch a brand, make a brand bigger, grow your following, all of that, right? The content was far and few between other than the podcast. So that's what I mean by disconnect. So if my goal was to grow the pod this year and make this website and this and get some special guests and get on other pods myself, that was not happening. And I felt that in my gut, felt that in my core. But at the time, I couldn't really identify or articulate that. So as I'm looking at this rundown of January through September, of all the highlights and things that I'm proud of or excited to mention or whatever of that month, they stopped in June. And that connects to that feeling of disconnect. So the next question was, all right, now go through, look and see, like based on what you wrote, how does that play into your goals? Like basically it was like a reflection question. And I'm like, okay, wow, looking at myself in the face here, look at myself in the eyes directly. This is interesting. The disconnect that I've been feeling shows because I didn't even list anything related to the podcast in these months. So the next couple of questions are things like, what can you do to be better at your goals? What habits do I need to establish to reach my goals for the year? Let's see. What caused any delays in reaching my goals this year? So really great journal prompts, great questions. I think for me, part of it is just, this is a long-term goal. Growing the pod, doing the pod, growing the in-between, growing myself as a content creator. And for me with ADHD, and just me being who I am as an individual. I think mostly the ADHD though. Long-term planning, if you're not used to it or you're not really taught well, like it's a hard concept to grasp. And this whole idea of making smaller goals and making these tasks smaller, it's been a reoccurring theme the past year in my life. Because I've mentioned this several times, I do feel like I have really, really worked on my adult ADHD and giving myself grace, but also learning how to manage it better because otherwise I'm just gonna hyperfixate on every effing thing and nothing is ever gonna get done. So, yeah, but thinking about what caused any delays in reaching my goals, it's this long-term planning. Work smarter, not harder. Put better systems in play. Put a better process along in your system at play, so to speak. And so, I'm reflecting. I'm like, okay, this is kind of grounding because again, it kind of opened my eyes that that disconnect that was there. I can see that play out and how my year was going. It kind of helped me pinpoint that, all right, I need to break this long-term project into smaller pieces. So what's the first big priority? This website. So let's break that down into smaller pieces. And let me tell you something, I'm not a web developer, so that is like breaking a huge thing down into lots of little pieces. So I'm already like thinking about strategy and what can I do between now and the end of the year to get this done. And I'll tell you what, it actually gave me a lot of peace because in this reflection, because I'm so hard on myself. You gotta do this, you gotta do this. If you're not doing this, you're not doing enough. Who can relate to that? I gave myself this moment of like, you know what? I know I wanted to build a WordPress website, but I'm not a web builder. I'm not a web developer. And I don't have necessarily the time and especially after all the Luna shit, the money at the moment to afford someone to help me with this. So I can either just get mad and kick myself that I still don't have a website. And it wasn't help. Like I just felt like I say a loser, but you know what I mean? Like I'm not reaching my goal. I don't really know how to get to my goal because I'm overwhelmed. How do I even do this? So I was like, you know what? I'm not a quitter if I end up just switching to like a Squarespace or one of those type of site builders. And the instant relief I felt, oh my gosh, the grace it gave me. Oh, so side note, rule of thumb, or not even a rule of thumb, but a wisdom for you. Give yourself grace. Check your expectations within yourself because you'll be surprised at how concrete you make them seem in your head, but really, they're not that serious. There is always a way. If there's a will, there's a way. And that doesn't always have to be what the path that you thought it had to be. And I know that sounds a little dramatic because I'm talking about a WordPress website compared to like an easy site builder like Squarespace. But this is a guardrail. This is a blocker into growing and like a next step with me. So why just sit here and beat myself up over something I really can't do? And it's okay that I can't do it because I did not go to school for this or think smarter. For some reason, that lifted the veil. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go spend like 30 minutes on the website a little bit each time. And by the end of October, if I don't really have anything to show for it, or if I'm still just like, what in the hell am I doing? Then I'm going to switch it over. And that's okay. And the site will still be great. And who's to say down the road I can't switch it? Maybe. I don't know. Boom. Felt so good, right? So I'm reflecting on this. I'm doing this journal prompt. And then the last question that I want to leave you with that I thought was very interesting and very reflective. How will I feel if I continue drifting away rather than accomplishing my goals? Wow, that was a question. I felt like that was like me looking at me, like internal me looking at external Liz. Oh my God, I can't speak. I felt like that was internal Liz looking at external Liz and being like, girl, 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 how we feel about that? Now, mind you, I'm already shooketh by the amount of reflection and introspection this journal thing had given me between looking at the month's accomplishments, going, oh, wow, there's the disconnect. It shows. Subconsciously, it came out. So, how would I feel if I keep dwindling, basically, and not actively working towards these goals? And actively could be 15 minutes a day. That's the thing. Like, I get in my head that I need hours and this, and sure, in the long run, it's going to be hours. But you can't just go from 0 to 1,000 unless you're a jet plane. And I don't even think you can do that. Okay. So I looked at that question, I thought about it, and I sat with it. I sat with it. Normally, I would just dismiss it, like, whatever. But I told myself that I was going to do this journal prompt, this whole exercise. And it was the most grounding thing I could have done because also, mind you, I'm still a little bit of topsy-turvy spiral with Luna. There's still so much like we don't know about it and what her long-term care is and oh god, the amount of money we've spent, not even just on the ER bill, but like on food and medication and supplements to counteract what the steroid was doing. Yeah, God bless. So doing this exercise because even though Luna is a priority, the in between is too, and I can't lose sight of that. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't slow down when things happen. No, because if you're familiar, if you realize the in between had like a 2 week hiatus, and that's because life was lifing, and I had to deal with it. So understand there's always a balance, and I was trying to find that, and I give it to myself. So that's what I'm saying when life is lifing, don't just keep trying to steamroll. Sometimes steamrolling works, I won't lie, in certain aspects of your life. Like if you're a mom and you have kids, like you obviously can't forget about taking care of your kids. But you know what I mean. Give yourself grace, give yourself balance. You don't have to have it all figured out. It's not going to implode. It's not going to end. It's not going to destroy. The pressure you put on yourself is simply that the pressure you put on yourself. So give yourself grace because that was a huge thing that I learned in this whole process because I was like, I can't even function outside of like the next hour because I don't know if Luna's going to throw up. That's how it was in the beginning. So take my time, take my pace. So back to this question, sitting with this question of how am I going to feel if I basically don't work towards my goals, if I continue to dwindle away. And I like the way that the question was worded. It's not so much that if you don't meet your goals, the question is, how are you going to feel if you continue to drift away from accomplishing them? And to me, maybe I'm just reading too much into that, but I took that as giving yourself grace. Like it's not even worded in the way of like, well, how are you going to feel if you don't accomplish it? Because that's kind of black or white thinking. This is taking a gray area approach, making you think about the internal aspect of just the work towards a goal. And so I sat with it and I thought to myself, I'm going to be disappointed. I didn't use the word hate. I actually said, I'll be disappointed. I know I have it in me. And that's why I resist it the most. Ooh, I just got goosebumps. The thing we crave, the thing we need, the thing we want the most is typically the thing we resist the most. There's a whole bunch of internal dialogue that goes along with that, anxiety, intrusive thoughts, all the things. But rather than leaning into that side of it, being overwhelmed, big task, big goal, long-term planning, I'm going to lean into the fact that it is what I want the most. It is what drives me the most. Ultimately, yes, I got to work my job, got to pay the bills, got to make sure rent's paid, take care of my dog, my husband, my family, my friends, all these things. And don't worry, the in-between is up there and is up there ahead of a few things. Maybe not my dog and my family, but you know what I mean. But leaning into the fact that not only is this what I want, and yeah, it's overwhelming, but I'm going to figure it out because it is what I want ultimately. It is what drives me. It is the future I want for myself. Leaning into the resistance, so to speak. And I sat there after I wrote that down, and then I wrote, let's get to business. I've got some people to light up. I know that may sound cheesy to y'all, but ultimately that is what I want the in-between, is to entertain, but to lift you up. Sure, we're going to bitch. Sure, we're going to vent, but ultimately, I don't want this to be so polarizing. It's all about just empowering you to know your worth and to love yourself and to also recognize that we're always growing and changing and evolving. And let me tell you, this journal prompt did exactly that. I felt so untethered after coming back from Italy. I mean, it's one thing to like go out of town for almost 2 weeks, right? Coming back, whoo, doggy. But then for our life to get turned upside down with Luna and being stressed about money and this, and we have a call with a mortgage lender today to start that process. And I'm just like, is this the right time? Life feels a little crazy at the moment, but life's always going to be crazy. And thinking about your goals and priorities, a huge priority is for us to get out of this apartment. We need to be able to live and not feel so cooped up on each other. And so my advice to you, or my wisdom, if you will, for this week's episode is give yourself grace, but check in with yourself on what your goals are this year. What is your priority? What are you wanting to focus on? Give yourself grace on whether or not you've gotten far with this. Maybe you're not that far. Maybe you're crushing it. You have figured it out. If you figured it out and you've got the great organization plan, I'd love to talk to you. Reach out to me. But understand that a little bit goes a long way after time. And I know everyone always says that, and I see quotes about that, but if you actually sit with that and recognize that, and you are like, okay, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, and you start writing down like the little things that you do towards that goal, the progress starts to develop. but you also recognize it too. So 5 minutes, well, guess what? That's 5 minutes you didn't do. Oh, you spent 15 minutes on it. You wanted to spend an hour? Well, but guess what? You spent 15 minutes on it. And that's a lot more than not spending any time on it. Whatever it is, whether it's a business venture, a creative hobby, teaching your kids stuff. God, wow, that sounded very ignorant. Can you tell I'm not a mom yet? But you know what I mean. A little bit goes a long way. And just like this was supposed to be a mid-year check-in, I did a three-quarter of the year check-in. There's still time. I still have 3 months. A lot can happen in 3 months. And I feel focused. I feel ignited to get these big goals, this long-term planning, start broken down to smaller pieces. And, sometimes the best thing we can do is just stop, slow down, and just get into our bubble. Sometimes we need that. So I hope y'all enjoyed today's episode and enjoyed my long rant about Luna and all of that fun stuff. But I appreciate you guys. I love this thing. I love getting to connect. I love empowering each other. And also, I want you to know, this empowers me too. One could say this seems like a self-journal sometimes, and maybe it is. I have no idea. But the reflection and introspection continues to push me and grow me. And that's all I want from you too. Or not from you. That's what I want from you. I want evolution. No, for you. But yeah, so that's that. But anyways, I'm going to go. Got to go job to do. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you are not doing so already, follow me on Instagram at ElizabethCheney_. And the Instagram for In Between is at in.betweenpod. I'm posting Italy content, pictures, all the fun things on my channel. So go check me out. And then on TikTok at the In Between Podcast, I'm also doing some itinerary recap videos, trying to, mix it up on the social medias and not just cross post everywhere. But then again, maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Because guess what? I'm in control here. I'm in the driver's seat. Booyah. And then last but not least, I got my nails done. And I already broke one. And I got these done literally a week ago. Not even a week ago, 3 days ago. So maybe this is my sign that I am too aggressive of a human being to be able to afford getting my nails done. What a weird thing to end the episode on. Oh, God. And on that note, I will see you next week for an all-new In Between. I hope you have a fabulous week. I hope you work towards your goals. I hope you give yourself grace. And remember, 5 minutes is more than 0. Last time I checked. So 5 minutes towards something, it's 5 minutes you didn't do yesterday. Right? Right. Anyways, love you guys. This is Elizabeth, and I will see you next week for an all-new In Between. Bye-bye-bye. Or should I say, ciao. Bye.